Welcome back to another You-Centered podcast. This is the sixth and final part of our Savage Leadership series. And we saved the one that I know the most for last. And I think you're going to really enjoy this person's take on leadership and how he has grown his company from the young days and basically how his family has gotten incredibly involved with this, and obviously one of the most successful businessmen in North Andover. So first of all, welcome to Chris Downer.
Thanks for having me here, Rick. Looking forward to answering some questions.
Absolutely. We're going to chop it up a little bit. So for people that don't know, Chris Downer is the owner and proprietor, along with his wife Nicole, of Downer Brothers Landscaping. And I like to try to tell a quick little story. I started here in 1988, and I got to know, one of the first people I got to know was a woman named Linda Downer. And she was doing a ton of work with me, actually helping kids that had learning disabilities and kind of working with a really kind of group of kids that were struggling that I had here first at the youth center. And obviously with working with Linda, I got to meet her amazing husband, Steve. And then I got to meet these two young guys. And her two sons obviously were big basketball guys in North Andover. But I also noticed they had this little side gig of the Downer Brother Landscaping. And you know, when you think and see all of his trucks around town right now, I remember when he used to push this little handheld lawnmower with his brother, doing people's lawns around North Andover. So it's really great to see 33 years later what Chris and his company has done. So Chris, I kind of led into your bio, but give us a little bio on the Chris Downer files.
My dad was in sales. He was shipped out to Illinois. I was born in Chicago, lived there for 4 years, and then he wanted to get back east. I lived in Vermont for 6 years, and then when I was 10, that's when we moved to North Andover. My brother and I, in Vermont, we had a pretty big yard. We had a couple of elderly neighbors, and they asked my parents if the boys could cut their grass, and that's kind of how it started. And so I was 8, my brother was 10, and we started mowing lawns. Moved to North Andover, and I knocked on one neighbor's lawn door, asked them to cut their lawn, knocked on the other neighbor. So we had 2 lawns that first year that we were in North Andover. And then each year it just kind of got a little bigger and kept it through high school and college. My brother and I had probably 60 or 70 lawns in college and in high school. I went to Babson College. I always knew I wanted to run my own business. I didn't really know what that would be, but the foundation was kind of already there. And then when I got out of college, we just started growing Downer Brothers.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about the most important people in your life. Nicole, who obviously actually worked for me a little bit here, and I've got to know over the decades, and your amazing daughters. Give them all a little bit of a shout out. Who are they?
Yeah, Nicole and I have been, business partners, life partners, 25 years. I got 4 daughters. I got a freshman in college. Abby, she's her oldest. She's at Babson. Michaela's a senior at the high school. She'll be going to Babson next year. Olivia's a freshman at the high school. And then Grayson's in 6th grade.
Yeah. Amazing young girls. Many of our listeners will know at least one of Chris and Nicole's daughters, but great kids all around. All right, let's get into this, and we'll talk more about the business per se. But if I had to ask you, with how you've grown the company, and I'm asking you now as a gentleman of your age as opposed to that 17-year-old kid that I first met, how would you describe Chris Downer's leadership style?
Athletics was a huge part of my life growing up, and it still is. I definitely lead by example, but being a good coach and mentor is a big part of how I lead. I like to show, I like to set the expectations, and then let them go and do, and then kind of correct and coach them along the way to make sure that they're handling themselves the way that we want them, to act in our community as employees of my company, and then obviously putting out the quality work that we expect them to do.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about how things have changed with the company over the decades too. But along with your leadership style, what would you say that you and Nicole have in terms of leadership values for the company?
Coach McVeigh was a big part of my life, and one of the things that he harped on was, be a good person, be a good student, and be a good athlete. And I kind of, view my guys, they're an extension of, Nicole and I, and doing the right thing is something that we harp on in our Friday morning meetings, with the employees. Everywhere you go, everybody's watching you, and we just want you to do the right thing. How you drive your car, how you park, how you open a door at Dunkin' Donuts. All that stuff, being a good person is important to us, and then obviously being a good employee in the field. So that doing the right thing, have integrity, being a good person is something that we really look for in people that work for us.
Yeah, and I can be attest to this. So we're going to get into a little bit later about your 21-year history of actually maintaining the grounds here at the youth center. But for 21 years, I have had your entire crew. I've probably seen 60 different people over the years that have cut my grass, weeded our beds, and each one of them has a way about them, polite, very honest. The way they talk to our staff and the kids and the concern, it's really good, and that gets set up from obviously the people that are running the company. When you look back, and again, when you look at what your business has been, it's been pretty much a lifetime business. But, as a young kid going off to prep school, going off to Babson, what type of a leader have you thrived under? And maybe what type of a leader have you struggled with?
So I've never worked. I take that back. I have worked for one other person. That's Peter Breen. I plowed snow for him. But as far as having a boss, I've never really had one. I've had a lot of coaches, from youth sports in North Andover, from high school to playing, sports in prep school and then in college. And it kind of comes back that athletics piece to me. Those leaders that are coaching you and kind of encouraging you and giving you guidance, and then that you go out and kind of do it on your own. Those are the kind of people that I like or thrived under, as a person. I don't like the authoritarian type leader. I don't. It turns me off. I think there's everybody has something to offer, and it's kind of your job as a leader to find what that is and to bring that out. And authoritarian style leaders definitely kind of look beyond that, and it's kind of my way or the highway. And I think you can miss what people have to offer if that's the way you think.
Yeah, very well said. We talked about it first. You and Chad were the company, and I go back. It seems like yesterday. I can remember your brother Chad in my office, and we were running through fake interviews and stuff because he was thinking about a career change, and he made a career change and became very successful in first the pharmaceutical business, and obviously working with hospitals and stuff. And Chad is so successful in his own right too. But at some point in time, you and Chad decided to kind of split. Chad was moving on to something else, and you took on. How was it like you and your bro running this thing, small business to start, and then Chad goes in a different direction, and then you, with obviously the help of Nicole, taking it in a different direction? What was it like going from the brother operation to barely being more of one guy running it?
So when we were younger, we were partners. We worked together, but it was kind of always, as we started to grow a little bit, I'd be like, hey, we need to get another lawnmower. We could do more work if we have 2 mowers instead of 1. And then it was, we should get, one of these push blowers instead of using, brooms. And then it was, I think we should get, and so it was kind of my vision as far as, what we can do to be more efficient, what we can do at a young age to kind of grow. And Chad was kind of quiet, a little more laid back. I would just go and knock on people's doors in our neighborhood. Hey, can we mow your lawn? Hey, we can clean your gutters. Hey, we can, seal coat your driveway. And then once we had, kind of a handful of clients when we were young, we would do the work during the day, and then we would drive around at night, and I would get out and knock on the doors, and we would get paid that evening for what we did. And I would knock on 6 or 7 doors, and we'd pull into someone's driveway and look at Chad and say, all right, it's your turn. And he'd look at me and say, I'm not going to knock on the door. And we'd end up getting a fist fight in the front seat of the car in someone's driveway, and I'd get up and go and knock on the door. But he was kind of behind the scenes. He was more organizational, who owed us what and that kind of stuff. He kind of took that care of that kind of stuff. And then when he left, there was a void. Like I knew I needed someone that had that organizational piece. I was always more of a big picture kind of person, had the ideas, but I needed help implementing. And as we grew, that void, became bigger. And then Nicole came into my life, and she was, a school teacher at first, and then came to work with you here. And she was always doing stuff, kind of in the back office for us, when we were smaller. And then started having kids, stay-at-home mom. She could do a lot of that office stuff for us. And that's kind of how, she was brought in. And then now, she runs crews, and she's a fantastic salesman, and she's kind of the glue to everything. But she prefers, to be out meeting customers, talking with people, and running her crews.
Awesome. Now, obviously, Chris and Chad had two amazing parents that I got really close with. And obviously, we lost your dad a little over a year ago. And your dad was like a mentor to me, one of the nicest guys ever, always asking me, how's the kids, Ricky? He always knew who my kids were and different things like that. But an amazing influence on me, so I can only imagine an amazing influence he was on you. And obviously your mother, I got to know, as I said at the beginning, a lot of work your mother was doing with the school department. And, she was really a mentor to me in dealing with kids with learning disabilities and things like that. How would you say that Linda and Steve supported the early dream that you and Chad had, and how they instilled leadership in you?
They never really said no to us. We my mom, in hindsight, she was our first office manager. I mean, someone would call in and ask for my brother and I to do some work. We'd get home at the end of the day from working, and then we would call them back. So she was kind of, that quote unquote office manager, when we were at a young age. And they let us fail. They let us go, and, you want to go and cut lawns? You want to go knock on? They never said no. And, we had a tractor at first, and it was inefficient and didn't cut great. I go to my dad, hey, we need to get a new mower. And, he starts talking to people, and it's like, oh, you don't want a tractor, you want one of these kind of mowers. And, he was super supportive. If we were backed up, he would work with us. And my dad was an athlete. And that kind of going back to that coachability thing, it's kind of the same thing. They would kind of offer guidance, but they never gave us money. They never, said, here's a truck and a trailer and a mower, like, you should do this. It was my brother and I that, kind of had that vision, and they just supported us. And it was pretty awesome to grow up with parents that, kind of let you do your thing. And I mean, they knew when to say, hey, you probably shouldn't do that, but, they kind of let us go.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that firsthand, and he was really behind the scenes. I remember after he retired, and before he kind of stopped working, he'd come and fertilize our grass and basically tell me how much of a taskmaster you were, and making him work hard and things like that. But you can tell he was very proud of what you had built with the company, as well as very proud of what Chad had done too. So obviously we miss Steve dearly. Chris, you were a star athlete at the high school. I got involved with you big time. Obviously we're both basketball junkies. But what people don't know is your big sport ended up becoming, after high school, was lacrosse. And that leads into a lot of the work you've done here with youth lacrosse. But how would you say sports helped you with leadership? You mentioned Mike McVeigh at one point, and I'm sure there were other people. What did you learn through leadership through sports?
To me, that... and might lead into it a little later with another question, but that hard work piece and that effort that you put in sports, you can see results. And the same thing with our business. I mean, yes, it is my business. The harder you work, the more you're going to get out of it. But with sports, to me, almost every team that I played on in high school, prep school, or college, I was the captain of. And leading by example, and being the hardest worker, staying late after practice, helping pick up cones or putting balls away, just willing to do anything, shows other people on your team, wow, he's the captain and he's cleaning up all the cones after practice, or he's the captain and he's bringing the bag out every day to practice. I just think it's important that, being that good person, willing to do whatever it takes, and actually doing that and setting that example, makes it easier to be a leader.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first started here was when you guys were in high school, and I think people don't know, you were on a basketball team. You were a junior, Chad was a senior, and John Weston and that whole crew, Danny O'Neill. It was probably one of the best teams we've had over here in the last 33 years, but people don't remember it because didn't get to the Songus Arena or to the state semifinal or whatever. But I'll never forget a phenomenal game in the state tournament against West Roxbury with a guy named Ron Stone, who ended up having a 12-year career in the NFL or whatever. And think back to that team a little bit. What kind of leadership did that team have? Because as I watched that, I saw that team that was a very driven, motivated, believed in each other, and strong leadership. And you were a strong leader on that team, not being a senior.
Obviously it was different back then, playing youth sports, high school sports. There was no, AU or club, anything. And much like, those teams before us with, Billy Gordon and the Keneally's and all those guys, we just wanted to play. And if you were younger and you couldn't drive, you hooked up with, older kids, and I was lucky enough to have an older brother. But we would go and play anywhere and everywhere together, all summer long in the fall, and just became really, really close. And it was fun being on those teams, just knowing that it was a team, that if you got into any kind of situation, you knew that anybody on that team would step up and have your back. And being able to play and kind of having no fear, it's pretty fun. It's a good feeling to have, when you're playing sports. And those guys, it's inclusive. Hey, we're playing Haverhill tonight. We're picking you up at 5 o'clock, and okay, and you go and play. It was, I think, a lot more team oriented back then than it is now, maybe, and a lot more looking out for each other, and it made it a lot more fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's in my 33 years here, might be, I got 4 of my favorite probably teams, and yours was in definitely the 4. And I'll just never remember. It was the old youth center. You guys would show up at Drummond and you'd start running drills, and there was always this inclusive thing, which I thought was pretty cool. And the team was pretty damn good too. So, all right, let me switch gears a little bit. Some people, you mention it, but we sometimes look at perception sometimes, right? So Chris Downey owns this big landscaping business in town. And I think everybody knows you have a degree from one of the greatest business schools in the world. How has maybe that Babson education helped you become the leader you are with your company?
So just to back up a little bit how I got to Babson, I wasn't a fantastic student. You alluded a little bit and talked about my mom and learning disabilities. I do have dyslexia, I am ADD. I didn't set the world on fire at the high school. I definitely knew that, I had standards and expectations for myself, and what I did at the high school wasn't going to allow me to do what I wanted to do, and that's how I got to prep school. And that small class environment, 6, 7 kids, was very good for me and enabled me, along with athletics, to get into a school like Babson. And then once at Babson, they take a very different approach to learning, and it's not just a written exam or a paper. There's a lot of group work. There's a lot of presentations, and that kind of suited my learning style. And then they just kind of teach you, strategies, and they're known for their entrepreneurial studies program. And that was my major. And it just gets you in a mindset and how to think. And I think most entrepreneurs, you already have it within you. And going to a school like Babson just kind of brings, that out a little more.
I mean, it's a great school. I've gotten very close with head coach Steve Brennan at Babson. What's it going to be like? You have one daughter at Babson, and Michaela's going there next year.
Uh, I think it's pretty awesome. Yeah, it just, like I said, that entrepreneurial studies focus that they have there. They changed their curriculum a little bit from when I was there. On the back end, you were more, working on a business plan your junior and senior year, but right off the bat, your freshman year there now, you're working on a business plan and a business, which I think is great. And so for those guys, just, and even our employees at Downer Brothers, we ask them to think like owners, and at Babson, they're teaching you that right off the bat.
Yeah. No, I think obviously Abby and Michaela, they're going to do really well there too. So, all right, let's talk about Nicole again a little bit. We brought up this. I first got to meet Nicole. I remember this. Nicole used to come down and watch us play pickup basketball. We had that league outside, and Nicole would come and sit on the hill. And I don't think she was interested in watching you, and she definitely wasn't interested in watching me and Peter Breen. But she used to sit there with a book, and I used to sit there and say, wow, she's reading or she's understudying or whatever, and she's kind of supporting her boyfriend playing down at Drummond Park or whatever. But over the years, I've gotten to know Nicole, and she's amazing in so many different things, and I had the opportunity to have her work for me for a very short period of time before you had kids. And when you look at Nicole as your partner in business and your partner in life, how is that kind of interchange, and maybe the positives of it and maybe how it's tough sometimes, but obviously you are synced in terms of the future of your company. Talk a little bit about that.
She is amazing. She's awesome. Definitely share same values, same goals. She is much more organized and systems oriented. I definitely have like a vision, and she is a part of how that vision gets put into play. The behind the scenes stuff, when we were small, it was easy for me to run 10 guys, 12 guys. As we started to grow, to run 20 guys, kind of in my head, not with a whole lot of systems and support, you really started to see the inefficiencies, and we needed help, and I needed help. That led us to hire a consultant that we worked with in probably 2.5, 3 years. And a lot of stuff that he wanted us to do was stuff that, she kind of took on, and, we would have our meetings, and then we would have, our life. But a lot of it was talking about, how are we going to do this? What's the best approach? They want us to do this. Maybe we should do it like this a little bit, not exactly like how, Jeffrey Scott, who was our consultant, wants us to do it. So as far as, that time period, it was pretty stressful. We were at a point where it was, keep growing or go back the other way and downsize. We were just on that, growth curve where, it was either tighten things up and kind of figure some stuff out, and keep growing, or kind of go back the other way. And she was a huge part of, implementing new software, systems, to get us kind of where we are now.
Yeah, I've had many conversations. I've actually had more conversations with Nicole about this than I've had with you. I'm intrigued with involvement, and how things shape up, and what I call tipping moments where you've got to make some decisions. And you guys made some serious decisions of where to go, as you've alluded to with the company on that. And I know she was directly involved with that. Things like efficiency, growth, how you manage different things. A lot of people probably might have some insecurities of actually doing that. You brought this guy in as a consultant, and it was, as Nicole describes to me, a very stressful period, and you just said that. So that process lasted a period of time. Where do you think the company is now post those decisions that you guys made?
As far as growth and revenue, we're pretty close to where we want to be. But it's like anything, it's that continuous improvement. Like we want to, you have 30 guys at 6 or 7 minutes a day, 6 days a week at 36 weeks out of the year that we work. It's a lot of money at the end of the season that you're spending. So shaving minutes off our day is what we're looking to do. And that's, kind of what we're working on now. It's just that well-oiled machine, little tweaks here, little tweaks there. What if we did this? Our end of day procedures, if we did this at the end of the day, then that shaves a little bit of time off in the morning. It's a funny business where, you make basically all your money in 6 months out of the year. So when it's go time, you think you've planned all winter long, you think you have your stuff in place, and all of a sudden you go from 0 to 100. It's hard to work on your business to make it better when you're working in your business because it's such a crazy time of the year. And so to find that time and be disciplined to keep your eye on that goal of being a better business, it's balance.
Yeah, and I think the leadership that you and Nicole sheds, a lot of it is looking in the mirror, self-analysis. And I think, like I don't, as an outsider, I didn't know you were going through that stress period of time. I saw kind of a fine-oiled machine with the company, and you guys had to make some tough decisions. I love the fact that you and Nicole are kind of partners, not just in life, but with the business. But you've also included the girls, right? So my girl, Michaela, I asked her, like, you coming back this summer to work? And she said, no, I'm going to be working with my dad. I'm going to do some stuff with the business. How has it been with getting the girls involved with the business?
It's pretty neat. At home, with 4 kids, 2 dogs, 9 chickens, it's a little crazy, and everybody has to contribute. And we kind of put it on them, like, this is what the expectations are that you guys are going to do at home. You need to do this, this, and this. And then they come up with their own system. They have, they call it their chore chart, and each day, someone's doing dog poop, someone's doing the chickens, someone's doing dishes, someone's vacuuming, someone's doing trash, and they're, checking off and kind of holding each other accountable. So that kind of team atmosphere is already in our family, in our house, and it's pretty awesome to watch. The older ones, poking the younger ones, and now the younger ones are getting older. Now they're poking the older ones, and hey, you didn't do this, and it's just anybody's willing to do anything. The older 2, Abby is in the office, absolutely loves coming to work every day, loves being in the office. She's learned our software system. She is doing customer service. She's helping with scheduling, estimating, that kind of stuff. They both have worked in the field. It's just, there's no, I don't want to do that. It's, okay, you're coming to work, today you're going to be weeding beds at, the Burkhart's house. Tomorrow you're going to be in the office, you need to do this, this, and this. And it's, okay, what's next? And that willing kind of to do anything that they're asked makes it fun to have them around. And then where I live, Gray Rock is right up the street, and it's a 10 or 12. It's a big farmhouse that has 10 or 12 condominiums in there. And on a big snowstorm, if we're getting behind, I'll call to the house and say, hey, you guys need to go up and shovel Gray Rock. And at 7 in the morning, I wake them up, and they'll grab shovels, and they'll walk up to Gray Rock, and they'll shovel all the walks and do whatever they have to do. And there's no, I'm not doing that. It's just, they go and do it.
I know it's early, but do you see? Let's just start with Ab and Michaela. Do you think either one of them will kind of grow with the business, and maybe even after graduation be part of the family business, or do you see them kind of doing their own entrepreneurship?
I don't push it. If they certainly wanted to take the business over, I wouldn't, squash their dreams. It is a pretty tough industry to be in. Labor right now, with what's going on in the country, is a huge challenge. And what we do, we need a lot of guys, and that's right now one of our biggest challenges is just finding help. We do have a core group of guys that we have 2 guys that have been with us 22 years. Once we find good employees, we try to hold on to them. As far as the girls, if they wanted in, I certainly would mentor them, and they'd probably tell me to leave, but help them along and help keep it going.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And again, they're amazing girls, so we'll follow this. Let's talk a little bit about our 21-year relationship with the youth center. So when we built this in '99, you were actually part of the committee, and your expertise was you actually designed how the outside was going to look at the youth center, whether it be the trees we planted, the bushes we planted, the beds and things like that. And it is amazing. I go around this building right now, like you remember those trees outside were like 2 feet tall when we planted them in 2000, and right now I think, and I'm obviously partial on this, I think it's the best kept municipal building in town, and a lot of that is the ownership of our kids, and no lie, we would not be able to do this without Downer Brothers Landscaping. So why the 21-year relationship? Obviously people know me and you have a personal relationship, but to me it seems more that with Nicole and you that there's really a commitment to give back, and you've chosen this building to do a lot. And let's be honest, folks, from cutting season to the end of cutting season, Downer Brothers is here every week. You do a fall cleanup, you do a spring cleanup. You're involved with HJ and the crew building our ice hockey rink every winter and taking it down. And whenever we need some pruning and whenever we need some tree work, it's Downer Landscape and saying, why?
I do think it's important to get back. My parents, we're involved in the community, and we're all about helping others, and they definitely instilled that in my brother and I feel really strongly about our kids and our community, and this is a pretty special place, and it should look special. And if we can help out and help this place, keep its doors open and keep providing the programs that you've put in place, more than happy to do it. And I do think it's tough to be a kid right now, and I do think that youth centers are an important place for our kids to be able to go and to do different things and to have a place where they can be a kid.
Yeah, I mean, we obviously greatly appreciate what you and Nicole commit to us every single year. And we're excited. We got a grant through the Joseph N. Herman Youth Center. Chris will be installing an irrigation system that we've long wanted to keep our grass always looking green. Kind of gets a little rough sometimes around July and August from the hot summers and all the sun that's out here. But, they continued to make our building the best thing. And I think the work that Nicole, Chris, and his crew does also makes the kids take ownership for it. And, we're putting together a kid beautification committee now and things like that. So, once again, Chris, we thank you and Nicole. 21 years, folks, of giving back to the youth center, and it's very greatly appreciated. Chris, you were involved with youth sports, and again, we talked about it. Things were different back in '89 when I first came here, and you were a high school kid. But as raising 4 daughters, we've also talked about a different perspective we have on youth sports. So sometimes you and I talk about that youth sports has gotten totally out of whack, and there's more to life than youth sports, and you've found a nice balance. You obviously, Vermont and Maine are very precious to you and your family. You get a lot of getaway time, but you're also still involved with a lot of the youth sports. And I would say at this point, the biggest sport you're involved with is youth lacrosse. What's your take? Why are you involved with the youth lacrosse program, and what are some of maybe the advantages and disadvantages of where we are with youth sports these days?
I do love coaching. I am a super competitive person. I think sports just has so much to offer kids from all different backgrounds. There's so many lessons to be learned. through sports. I do think that we've gone a little bit overboard with the sports. Kids still need to be kids. Kids still need to go to the beach in the summer. They need to go, to the mountains and hike and do that kind of stuff. Sports is becoming a pretty intense, pressure-filled experience, or it can be. And I think, shutting it down is a good thing. Take that month off in August or that month off in July, and then just go do stuff with your family, your friends, and kind of turn off the sports. As far as what we've done with our kids, the older two will say that I push them a lot more than I have the younger two. And to be honest, they're probably all at the same spot that they were, with the two that I pushed hard versus the two that I didn't push, as far as talent-wise. It's important that, the kids are having fun. And if the parents are making it not fun, I think you need to look, at what you're doing. And you can get on a club team or you can get on an AAU team and you can play 365 if you want. I don't think that's the best thing. If you talk to college coaches, everybody talks about that 3-sport athlete. There's very few left. But when you play so many games in a year, it just becomes another game. And I think you might be more skilled because you're playing so much, but I don't think you're a better player. You lose that competitive edge, you lose that fire in your belly. You're not as tough because it's just another game. I got 3 more on Saturday, and then Monday I'm going to go here and play. I think that waters it down a little bit, and I think getting away from sports for a little bit kind of gives you a chance to recharge those batteries and kind of get that fire back. And if you play 3 sports or 2 sports, going from season to season, it's it's not few, it's over, but it's I can't wait for this to start, and it's something new, and then that ends, and I can't wait for that season to start, and I think that's a good thing.
I mean, I think you guys have built a nice balance. Obviously, of all your 4 daughters, I've got to know Michaela the most, and I actually look at her as being extremely grounded, right? I know what's important to her, specifically on the lacrosse field, but I also know it's important for her to go skiing on the weekends. I know it's important for her to be with her family. I know it's important to be with her friends. I actually, seeing her go off to play lacrosse at Babson next year with Abby, I see someone that's got a nice balance to that. And I do worry, as someone who works with kids 24/7 for 33 years, I am worried where we're going with youth sports and the expectations we have and everything else. So, Chris, we've asked every one of our Savage leaders, we've given them a quote that I actually read that kind of is pertained to the guests. So today, this is one I thought of you. Could you tell me what this quote means to you? Hard work is not punishment. Hard work is the price of admission for the opportunity to reach sustained excellence.
To me, that kind of says it all. If you're willing to put the work in, you're going to get out exactly what you put in. And as a business owner and a small business, there's days where, I come to work with, a collared shirt on. Something goes sideways, it doesn't go as planned. All of a sudden, you're in the trenches. Working alongside your crew, and when you are working, you're working as hard or harder than them, setting that example. In athletics, to me, that hard work piece, if you're not willing to work hard and put that time and effort in, you aren't going to see the results that you want. And, it's kind of the same thing in life. It's, relationships, if you don't work, on those relationships, you're not going to have them. Some of the greatest kind of enjoyments in life are the things that you work the hardest at. And if you're willing to put the work in the time, you will see that excellence.
Yeah, that sustained excellence. Like I should probably show people this picture. I have a picture. You and Chad were actually in a magazine that Linda had given me. And it was a magazine for that focused on working with kids with learning disabilities. And obviously you talked a little bit about that. And the picture, you are wearing way too short of shorts, I got to be honest with you. You're pushing this thing on your skateboard. And when I think back at that, and again, when you're someplace as long as I am, 33 years now, it is awesome to see the growth with lots of people. And to me, to see that sustained excellence of when you just had a few yards and you were calling up people, and the story of him like getting in a fight with Chad in the truck about who's going to go collect the money or whatever. I mean, that's how you and Chad kind of rolled back in the day. So seeing how this company has sustained excellence and obviously grows in its excellence every day is unbelievably impressive. Let me talk to you about making tough decisions and focus it around the pandemic. So the pandemic, pandemic affected businesses in a lot of ways. Sometimes it may or may not have affected landscapers as much. As a matter of fact, I saw more people doing more work with their lawn last year than they probably had done before. But how did the pandemic affect Downer Brothers? And when you make tough decisions, what guides you in making those tough decisions?
Making a tough decision, to me, you got to educate yourself, and I'm not afraid to ask for help or ask for people's opinions, and I'll kind of gather all that information in and process that, and then I'll move forward and make my decision. Very rarely on a big decision will I just go ahead and do it on my own, unless I'm on the spot. Then you have to, but I do. I have Peter Breen in town and Monroe, who I looked up to when I was young. Was not afraid to pick up the phone or drop in and see those guys. Hey, we got this going on. How did you do this, or what do you think? And then as the business started to grow, the questions weren't so much about how you do something, in the field, landscape wise. It was more, like business decisions and, reaching out to, successful people. I wasn't afraid to do. So to me, that tough decision part was, do your homework kind of thing and gather information, and then make your decision.
Yeah, I mean, that's really good. In terms of the pandemic, how was Downer Brothers affected by the pandemic?
Initially, it was very scary. I mean, didn't know, what it was going to look like. And, talking about shutting everything down, that shuts our business down. That shuts our revenue. We don't get paid unless we do work. And the thought of not being able to go out and do work, you work hard to grow your business, to grow your culture, and then, to collect, I call them teammates, but, employees, and for us to not to be able to go out and work means that, how am I going to pay these guys? And that was a real, concern. And then as, kind of stuff progressed, it was, okay, we can do this and this. But, we had to set up our guidelines. We had to set up, our procedures. We only had one person get COVID. We were very fortunate that, our guys were disciplined and were doing the right things. And at the end of it, it turned out to be a fantastic year. People were staying home. Their entertainment and travel budgets weren't being spent on entertainment and travel. It was, hey, why don't we do something to our house? And a lot of it was outdoor, work that we were able to take advantage of.
Yeah, good year for you guys and well deserved. When you think about growing your leadership, so you are extremely successful, both in you, Nicole, the company. You're still a young guy. How do you grow your leadership?
I think the biggest thing is, the people that are our friends, people that, we hang around with or, socialize with, they're all successful people. And I'm a pretty social person. Grew up kind of watching Peter Breen and this big family, and in my mind, I'm like, that's what I want. Like, I want to have a big family. And I don't, Nicole is more of an introvert, and she can grab that book and for a weekend, be in Vermont and do her thing and not come out and do anything. To me, it's who's coming over tonight. Like, let's have a barbecue. I like, socialize and, in those settings, we got friends that are, in finance, they're business owners, big and small, picking their brains, asking them, running stuff by them. And then, our industry, it's a pretty big industry. People don't realize how big it is. But there's tons of trade groups and industry specific, groups and magazines, and I try to read a little bit every morning. I get into work, 5:30, 5:45. It's super quiet then. Our consultant, I'm still a part of his, kind of network, and he sends out, these, kind of like newsletters, and just reading that kind of stuff and just kind of seeing how other people do things and, trying to take and apply to what we're doing to make it,
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely not resting on your laurels. I love hearing that, and it's interesting your consultant's still connected with you and Nicole, and obviously it has helped immensely with what your vision of the program is. Let's talk a little bit about a guy you mentioned a few times. So when I first started here, they had recently separated, but Tyler Monroe and Peter Breen, who when I first came here, I would have to say by far the two biggest names in landscaping in North Andover. At that point, Pete had kind of taken over the bark mulch piece of it, and Ty was still doing most of the lawn cutting or whatever. And Pete. First of all, he'd be really upset if we didn't talk about him on this podcast. But got to know Pete real well, and then as I was getting to know you, in our infamous trips to Maine, which we had many trips to Maine, a lot of good times. Is I always looked at you and Chad as almost mini me, Peter Breens, and you kind of said it like you saw Pete. Kind of sad for all of us. Pete and Kerry sold the house out on Boxer Street, a house that he raised 5 kids at, and he had the original bark mulch area was there and everything else. But how would you say Peter, Tyler, or anybody else kind of helped shape your vision in terms of entrepreneurship?
Both very successful guys. Pete, I connected a little bit more with, mainly because of basketball. And that's how I first kind of got to know him. But he's one of my best friends. Talk to him, a couple times a day. But he and Tyler, back in the day, they were it. I mean, they were the landscaping company around here, and they were successful. And they ended up going 2 different directions. And Pete, I guess looking back, I've kind of taken a little bit from both. Tyler's, pretty dialed in, definitely systems oriented. Pete's more of that big picture, guy, and looking at both of them, I've taken a little bit from each on kind of how I approach things. I definitely grew a little bit bigger, more guys than they did, but they both definitely had something to offer that was different that I, kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's been really fun for me to watch, because when I first met those guys, they were raising young kids now. Now their kids are all grown, and both still have good companies. But I look at Pete, and to be honest with you, I deal with Tim and Travis more than I deal with Pete right now, and how he's kind of downsizing a little bit in terms of his role. And it would be interesting to see where Tim and Trav take that business going forward. And obviously Ty's still around doing great stuff. Ty continues to do a lot for the Soccer Association and our fields and things. But 2 good guys to look up to that really cared about this community, gave back to this community. I don't think people know how much Tyler and Pete have given back to the community over the years. All right, we got a few more questions and we'll get you out of here, because I know you got check on the cruise and everything. What would a 17-year-old, what would you say to the 17-year-old Chris Downer today? So let's go back to when I first met you with those shorty shorts pushing that lawnmower. With everything you've known now as a man in his 40s, what would you say to that 17-year-old Chris Downer now?
So you alluded a little bit to us going to Maine and going to Vermont. Up until I met Nicole, I mean, I go 100 miles an hour, and my day is pretty action packed. Going from working all day to when we were younger, playing basketball 3, 4, 5 nights a week. Just on the move, constantly doing stuff, but taking that little bit of time to yourself and kind of slow it down a little bit and reflect. Something that I didn't do. What kind of led us to Vermont. Nicole's parents died 15 months apart. I was coaching high school basketball over in Andover with Coach Fazio. I thought it was one of the most important things that I was doing. It was a ton of fun. We had some pretty successful teams over there. Nicole's like, we have 2 kids, I'm pregnant. Like, this is not what I want to do, is be chasing you around in the high school gym. I was like, well, what do you want to do? And she's like, I want to ski. And we have friends, from town, the Applegates, that, had been going to Sugar Bush for a number of years, and they invited us up, and we stayed with them a couple weekends, and realized that it was a fantastic, family activity. And that kind of started us going to Vermont, and it's probably the best thing that, we ever did. We have friends with kids that are, in town, and, the parents would say, oh, you wait till they get to high school, they're not going to want to go with you. Maybe 1 or 2 weekends they would stay home in a 5-year span, but it was, what time we were leaving for Vermont every Friday. They couldn't wait to go. So that kind of, taking that time, being with your family, slowing things down, kind of shutting things off, I think is important. And when I was younger, I definitely didn't do that. Definitely, I found a way to do it now.
It's really great to see. If and I need to get in touch with Chris on a Friday afternoon. It's usually, I know he's on the road heading to Vermont, so it's a good chance for me to catch him while he's on the road. I do find it amazing that when I think of Mick and the rest of your daughters, they really are pumped to get out of here every Friday and head to the weekend. With Pete Breen, I obviously was involved with every one of his kids, and a lot of them were the same way. Kristen was a little bit different. Kristen fought them every weekend about going. But what's ironic now, Kristen lives in Maine and would love to be up there every weekend and everything else. So it's good little advice to almost take a deep breath, take an evaluation of stuff. And again, I know how much you loved coaching with FaZe and how successful your Andover team was, but I think a tipping point for you was, Nicole said, listen, I don't really want to do this. It's not what I really want to do. And you partners, in an example of how great partners you are, you kind of figured it out, and I think it's been great in the long run. So let me ask you, you have 2 daughters, obviously Bobson kids as of next year. I want you to speak to them, but also speak to all of my other kids that are maybe graduating college, graduating high school, that have visions of being their own entrepreneur in whatever business it may be. You have proven to do this. What would be your advice to these young people that have a dream to maybe start their own business?
Don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to fail. At the end of the day, all they can say is no. And so what if they say no? If you want to be an entrepreneur, you are going to fail. And it's okay. I think, with how kids are now, and how they compare their GPAs to each other, what college you're going to, what's the admission, rate there, and the bars that they set for each other are kind of ridiculous, I think, and the pressure that it creates. It's okay. Like, you don't need to be, the kid with the highest GPA. You don't need to be the kid that's going to the best school. Take chances, take risks, and figure it out. Like, if they say no, and say, well, why are they saying no? What can I do so I can change the situation? But taking those risks and have fun. It's not. It's not so important to be the top in the class. It's where you end up. And take those risks. I like taking the risk. I think so. One of my fears a little bit and I'm focusing on North Andover because I've been here for 33 years, but I'm sure it's like that with other communities. Is I worry about the kids that are
afraid to taste the risk. They're afraid of having failure. And I don't live my life that way. You don't live your life that way. And you know, failures turn into successes. You can't be walking on eggshells. You can kind of get this done. All right, Chris. Before we let you go, we kind of ask our leaders, and we don't give you any prep on this. I'm going to give you 5 names of people that I think are leaders in whatever genre or anything else. And I want you just to let me know what comes to your mind when I say this name. So I'm going to start off with someone you know pretty close. Chad Downer.
Awesome brother. Challenged me, you know, every day growing up. Super supportive, you know, would do anything for anybody. And a great athlete.
Absolutely. Going to give you one of a national known person. I'm intrigued with this person's leadership style from where it came from to where it is now. But a hip hop artist or you know, guy's the king of hip hop. Jay-Z. When you think of Jay-Z, what do you think of in terms of leadership?
A guy that, you know, created a pretty awesome empire. Definitely had some adversity. Was willing to put the time and the work in, and he's done quite well for himself.
Yeah, he really has. Peter Breen.
He's one of those guys that's not afraid. You know, I think more people need to lead and speak out, and he's one of those guys. He gives a tremendous amount back and has to this town, this community. And when you see something that's not right, he was a guy that would not be afraid to speak up, or, you know, to get behind someone and have their back in speaking up. Just a really generous person, generous family, good guy.
Yeah, we bust his chops a lot, but talk about a guy that's a loyal friend, a guy that really has your back. I mean, this building is not built here with, you know, people like Tom and Pin Burkhardt, you know, Jack Shaw, Terry Price, and Peter Breen. I mean, there is no youth center without Peter Breen. I don't think people know. And he likes to remind people how much work he did down here. But obviously, Pete has donated bark mulch to every elementary school. He's done it all with every funder. He bleeds North Andover, and that's why it is a little melancholy thinking about that 770 Boxford Street's not the home of Peter Breen anymore. And I think we all spent a lot of time growing up there, right? Ice skating, hanging out in the barn, Christmas parties, and just a real good guy. And I don't think North Andover probably knows how lucky they are to have him. Diana Taurasi, one of the, I think, the greatest woman basketball player.
Fierce, you know, competitor, all those things that, you know, you hope and wish to play with, you know, growing up or being on a team. I mean, she's that, you know, all-encompassing, you know, teammate. Kind of do whatever needs to be done, whether it's getting a stop on D, whether it's taking that shot, that lead by example.
I picked her, Chris, because I actually see a little bit of you in her with all the things you just said. Like, she's a fierce competitor, way together, not afraid of failure, and obviously I think she's a huge leader in our women's game of basketball. I'm going to give you the last one, the most important one, Nicole Downer.
To me, you know, she's everything. Just to watch her, you know, with our kids, and how she parents, how she's willing, you know, to give her time to anybody. She's a fantastic writer. She's done a lot of one-on-ones with family friends, with writing college essays. Just really an intelligent person, very, very thoughtful. Very lucky to have her in my life.
Absolutely. She's the brains of the outfit, I tell everybody
yes.
all the time. Chris, this was awesome. This really, I think, for me, this was a trip down memory lane. You know, as I look at my career, where it is right now, I mean, I feel very fortunate to have Chris and Chad Downer and Nicole Downer in my life the last 33 years. Obviously, you know how much I appreciate what you guys do for us at the youth center. It's all love for the three of you. Congratulations on the business. I mean, I watched front row seat watch the growth of this business, and it's extremely impressive. And the business piece I'm watching right now is the growth of four amazing daughters. All great kids, Chris, and I know that they're going to be really successful. Whether it's eventually coming back into the Downer Brother landscaping or doing their own thing, they will be very successful. So I want to thank you once again for coming on the Savage Leadership Series.
Thank you, and thank you for your 33 years of excellence here in North Andover. You've done a tremendous job, with this building and the programs you run out of here, and in our community is definitely very lucky to have you as a part of it.
Well, thanks for saying that. This wraps up our 6-part series. I want to thank all of our guests that we've had on: Christina Minicucci, Dina Young, Melissa Rodriguez, Rich Napolitano, John McVeigh, and obviously Chris Downer. This has been really good. The feedback that people have gotten from people they know from the community and hearing their leadership styles and things that make them tick, I'm most proud about that. I think our listeners got to see how human these 6 amazing leaders are. So that wraps up our series. We'll be back to doing some other crazy, interesting things with a lot of our kids as we're winding down the year like no other. So you'll be looking forward to other ones that we'll be having back. Every week we'll have a different topic. For people that have different topics or different speakers they want to hear, get in touch with me. We're open to everything. And again, thank you to all of us, the listeners of North Andover. And we basically end every podcast by saying too much passion is never enough passion.